Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by H&R Block and specifically Lisa Atkins' team at H&R Block off Callahan Road down in Knoxville. Lisa's been going my taxes for many years. The process in her branch is very simple. It's very quick, calm, and friendly. And I've told you the last couple of weeks, calm is the key word for me, key word for most people at tax time. It's stressful. Lisa's team helped take the stress out of that. If you have any issues with the IRS at all, H&R Block stands by you. Lisa Atkins, give her team a call. Callahan Road right here in Knoxville. All right, I want to quickly run through the formula that we unveiled last week using a lot of the numbers provided by Hoops Guru / mathematician / stats geek, Ken Pomeroy. Here are some stats as they apply to Tennessee. We're looking at effective field goal percentage. You see the difference against bad teams and good teams. Tennessee 12-4 against lesser effective field goal percentage shooting teams. All right. Next up, turnover rate. You see a huge difference there too. Teams that turn it over a lot, Tennessee 10-3 against them. Teams that don't, Tennessee 12-9 against them. Next one, average height. Oh, this is big. Tennessee against shorter teams, 16-2. Against taller teams, that's about 6'5". If you average more than 6'5" in your starting lineup and minutes played, 6-10. All right. Next one, adjusted offensive efficiency. The most efficient teams in the nation, Tennessee was 3-7 against them. Less efficient teams, Tennessee 19-5. Makes sense. All right. Adjusted defensive efficiency, same thing. Better defenses, tougher to play them. Worse defenses, Tennessee smokes them. Last one, huge, tempo. Tennessee plays at a slow down pace. They are 13-0 against faster teams. That includes UMass and Iowa. Both were faster teams. Tennessee able to slow them down, get them out of their rhythm a little bit, make them play a little bit uglier than what they're used to. Makes a huge difference. So we have gone ahead and graded all of the remaining 23 teams that Tennessee could possibly face. That includes all the ones on the other side of the bracket that may be in a national championship game. Over at the board right now, we want to show you these teams. All right, here we go. The Vols were 13-0 this year against teams on that. Now that's 6 categories that matched 0, 1, or 2. All right, bad numbers 0, 1, or 2. Tennessee was undefeated. There are none of those teams left. I mean, you're talking about teams that shoot well, teams that don't turn it over. So it's going to get tougher and tougher. You see up there, Memphis matches on 3. That's a good matchup. You see on the season, Tennessee was 6-3 against teams that were 3s. Unfortunately, it would have to be an all-volunteer state final for you to see Memphis. I will tell you this, Texas was a 2. Texas would have been the best matchup in the entire tournament, according to the numbers for Tennessee, had they beaten Michigan. We're looking at the 4s now. Those were bad matchups last week. Because there aren't many good matchups left, we're going to kind of make them dark green. That's an okay matchup, best you could hope for. The blue line means they're in the other side of the bracket, so you wouldn't see those with a blue line beside them until you got into a final with them. But Tennessee 2-3 on the season against the 4s. Iowa was a 4, and they got by Iowa, although they were tied at regulation, so that one was close. You see all the teams there left in the 5s. Tennessee was 0-3 against them. The bright red, Tennessee 1-3 against those, so just 1-6 against those teams in the red. Chuck, if you would come in and join us now, I want you to put Mercer on our board. Today's opponent, I've gotten so many questions this week wondering what the verdict was on Mercer. Their score was, and we got it here, a 4. All right, so Mercer, not a great match. As of last week, we would call that a bad matchup, but in terms of what's left, okay, it's one of the best you could hope for. Next up, Michigan. If Tennessee gets by Mercer, they too. Thank you, Chuck. That was fabulous. You're like Vanna White. We need to flip the letters. Michigan is a 4. So there you got the 4s up there for Mercer and Michigan by the numbers. And this formula was pretty good. On the season, it was 28-4 going into the tournament. So it's 29-5 now, and it only missed the Iowa thing by 1 point. It's been pretty darn accurate. So Mercer is not going to be the breeze that a lot of people think. We're going to have you break down Mercer in the next segment. Michigan, they're going to be a lot tougher than Texas would have been. Thoughts on Tennessee fans and how they're viewing this Mercer game? Do you think there's enough knowledge of this squad now? I mean, they did knock you out of the NIT last year. Do you think there's any chance that folks are taking them a little too lightly?
Probably. They see a 14 seed beside that name. They need to remember the team that beat Tennessee in the NIT. It was a really good basketball team. You pointed out Florida Gulf Coast. That's who beat Mercer in the title game last year in their conference. Mercer beat them this year for the title game in their conference. So I think they're a really good basketball team, and if you have any doubts, look at what Krzyzewski said about them. I think they're a really good basketball team, and I think it's going to be a huge challenge for Tennessee.
Mark, I think that in terms of facing a Cinderella, if you're going to have to get a 14 seed, I think the fact that Tennessee lost to them last year.
Oh, yeah.
Help.
I mean, I played at one of those hyphenated team schools, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, you know, and we played at Boston College in Alabama that didn't really respect us. The difference is that we can hold our head on the fact that Mercer came into Thompson-Boling Arena last year and quite honestly embarrassed us the way we defended them. And so I think they have more credibility, they have more respect for Mercer going to this game. So that kind of outweighs the fact that they're playing a lesser named opponent.
The other thing that got to keep in mind, however, is that works both ways. Mercer also knows they can beat this Tennessee team. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. These two having played each other, it'll be interesting to see what advantage goes in what direction today. For those of you who are looking at that board and saying, "Gosh, there aren't many good matchups left," we'll give you another stat. I'll give you another chance, something to be happy about. All right, here you go. As we pointed out, Tennessee is 13-0. If you just look at one category, they're 13-0 against up-tempo teams. There are 6 of those teams remaining: Iowa State, Kansas, Louisville, who, if you somehow get by Michigan, that might be who you saw in an Elite Eight game, and UCLA. Iowa State, Kansas, Louisville, Memphis, North Carolina, and UCLA all play up-tempo. So, you know, those would be okay matchups for the Vols if they get them. They're undefeated against those squads. Of course, those squads have a lot of other things going for them, as we just showed you. But in case you didn't write down everything, you didn't catch it all, we'll be tweeting some of this information later on, and you can always go to sportsource.tv to watch clips of our past shows. When we come back, we have a scouting report. Mark Pankratz used to prepare the scouting reports for Bruce Pearl, Conzo Martin. You've done one up the same way you would for the coaches. It's going to be interesting for you. Grab a pad and paper, or a pad and pencil, instead of just taking the pad and paper and rubbing them together. Grab a pencil and come back, and you can follow along during today's game and see what Mark gets right and what you get wrong. All right, come on back on the Sports Source.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television.